Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Let's Chat Reality. I'm Michael,
And I'm Molly.
and we are here today to talk Million Dollar Secret Season 2. Just dropped on Netflix, and I am so excited. I was looking forward to this all year since Season 1 dropped, which I was a huge fan of. I think you were too, Molly, not to speak for you.
Yes.
But I have been very excited for this, and I am thrilled that we finally have the whole season dropped so we can go through it and give all our thoughts. Molly, are you ready to start?
Yes. Yeah. I also did like season one a lot. So I was looking forward to season two as well. And I'm excited to discuss all about what happened this season.
Yeah. All right. So let's just before we get into the nitty gritty of it, what are your thoughts on season 2 just as a whole? What are your overall big thoughts?
I really liked it. And I like to see that the game has also evolved as like the players have noticed things like from season one that they're able to take into consideration for the different agendas they have to complete and all that and like different strategies that could be used versus like what they were watching. Season one was the first time the season had come out, so it was interesting to see that like evolution even just from one season to the next, of what's happened from this season. And I think that I enjoyed it even more because of that. So I really like this season.
Yeah. So I realize maybe I should kind of just give an overview for anyone who maybe hasn't watched it or hasn't checked out season 2 yet and kind of forgot the basics of season 1 since, Netflix shows, they drop very quickly this season. So even just waiting only a year, really, it feels like a long time since season 1. So for those who don't remember, it's Million Dollar Secret is a kind of a Traitors or the Mole type show where someone is randomly selected to be the millionaire, which in traders' terms will be kind of like the trader. And then they have to complete an agenda that is given to them by Peter, our host. And it's something that they have to do kind of in front of everybody and do it without getting noticed. And if they complete it, they get some sort of advantage. If they don't complete it, they get a punishment. Then at the end of each episode, everyone votes on who they think the millionaire is, or maybe not necessarily who they think who the millionaire is, but who they want to eliminate. And then throughout, if the millionaire is eliminated, then or if they survive a certain number of rounds, then they get to move the money themselves. Or if they're eliminated, then the money randomly moves somewhere else to another guest. And at the end, whoever ends up with $1 million wins $1 million. So that's just kind of the very basic overview of the show. But yeah, it was one of my favorite new shows of 2025. And I believe, did it win? No, I don't think we did that
I don't
category at the
think we have.
Chatties. So I don't think it won
Yeah.
anything, but it would have. If we had done Best New Show of 2025,
Yeah.
100% my vote was going to go to Million Dollar Secret. So yeah, I loved the first season, and what I really love about season 2 is that they honestly didn't really change much from season 1. It was very much the same show, and
Yeah.
it's very rare these days. I feel like that, or really probably ever, that season 1 of a show is really like a fully formed show. A lot of
Mhm.
times it's kind of like the rough draft, and then they see viewer feedback and what worked, what didn't work, and then they make those changes for season 2. And then it oftentimes feels like season 2 is like, okay, that's now the show that we know and love when we're in season 10, season 12, whatever. It's like you really look back and like, oh, season 1 was a whole different beast. But with Million Dollar Secret, it felt like season 1 came in fully formed, and season 2 is just because of that, because they didn't have to make very many changes. The cast, like you said, was able to know what was coming, know the format, they know some of the tricks and what they can do to kind of beat the system and maybe make decisions that people weren't thinking to make in season 1 that is best for your game. So I thought it was fascinating to see some of that this season, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very fun.
Yeah, I agree. I like that they kept it the same format as well because it did allow for that consistency there and that the players could then understand like, okay, this happened season one, like how to best go about this now. And I still really like the secret agenda, so I don't want them to change that. So I feel like they need to keep those, but maybe make them slightly harder. Like, I mean, I feel like
Mhm.
they all completed their agendas, but also a lot of them were caught in doing them. So I don't know how to adjust that, because I think with that, it's like they're still hard, even if they're doing them, like because people are catching them, but maybe make it so that they won't complete them as quickly.
Yeah, because I don't think this season we saw anyone not complete their
Yeah.
agendas. Everyone completed their agenda successfully. So
Mhm.
I agree. I think maybe next season make it a little bit harder. And I don't even know how this is possible necessarily, but like making it harder, but like making it so they don't necessarily like just automatically get caught while doing it, but don't
Yeah.
care because they still win the reward. Like I feel like that's what we saw a lot of this season was like people who were just like, okay, I've gone too far. Like I have to just complete this and I don't care if anyone catches me because then maybe they it's like, okay, well now we know who the millionaire is and we don't necessarily want to take them out because we now know who it is and we can take them out later when we would prefer to get the money later on in the season when we don't have as much time to have to hold it for. So I think it was very fun for this season, but I do agree that I think in future seasons, if we keep just automatically assuming that everybody's going to complete their agenda and maybe they'll get caught, maybe they won't doing it, I would prefer that sometimes people not complete their agenda.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, like I mentioned, this show is very similar to the Traitors and the Mole in kind of a way of there's somebody there who you're trying to suss out who it is. And I wonder because you've now seen all three of those shows, multiple seasons of all three of those shows. What would your ranking be? Which of those three do you like best, worst, whatever?
Well, I feel like I still have to give Traders the top slot there, just because it has all of our favorite reality people involved in that. Even when it was not just reality people, but like still related to that. And I think just that format is fun to see. But then Million Dollar Secret is really good. And I like that we see who the millionaire is, because that's my one qualm with the mole is like, because I mean, I guess it's fun that you don't know who that mole is, but then the whole time, like, you're trying to guess, like, who it's trying to be, or who you think it is, and like all of that. But in $1 Million Secret, you get to at least see, and the movement of the $1 million also makes it a fun aspect to like deciphering like who it could be from the cast. That like is interesting to see how they move about the game, and their strategies in terms of like who they should align themselves with if they do want to keep the millionaires. You were saying like that happened a lot this season, that we were seeing like people actually wanting to keep them around because then they knew where the money was going to be. But then twists can always come up too, and the $1 million could be switching to a different briefcase and all of that. So I like that aspect. But I think, I mean, all three of them are really great shows. But I think I would have to go Traders, $1 Million Secret, then them all.
Okay. Yeah, I think it kind of just depends what my ranking is based on because I think as a show, like as a format, I think I'm torn between Million Dollar Secret and The Mole because I think The Mole, when it was good, like the Netflix version was fine. I enjoyed the Netflix version. I really, really loved the early seasons, like back when Anderson Cooper was hosting. Like that was just like
Yeah.
one of the greatest reality competition shows that there ever was.
Yeah. I'm
And
just judging on the Netflix
yeah,
version.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And like it was good. It just like to me, the Netflix version was kind of forgettable, kind of lacked a
Yeah.
personality to me. And the editing was kind of annoying where it was like you see just constant confessionals of people being like, well, that was suspicious. Like maybe it's that person, whatever. And it was just like kind of annoying that like we weren't really getting people's true thoughts and opinions, it felt like a lot of the times. And so it made it almost impossible to like judge on anything.
Mhm.
Um, but so I think probably like just if we're judging the current, the well, not current, I guess, because I think it was basically replaced by $1 Million Secret. It feels like a Netflix's schedule since we haven't seen this season since 2024. Um, but I think yeah, if we're just judging by like the newest version of the mole, I would put it last. Then I think it would just come down to like I think the format of $1 Million Secret is better than the Traders. It's less broken, if you will. Um, But I think Traitors, because of the excitement of just having people who we love from other shows, like the legends, it's like the Avengers of the reality TV world coming together each season. That has to be number one, just in my pure enjoyment and excitement of watching every episode. But if we're just judging on the game itself, like I would love that cast to play the game of $1 Million Secret. That I think would be more interesting game for them to play.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a good ranking there.
Well, then let's get into the show. So we're just gonna kind of hit the highlights, the high points of the season, not get into the nitty gritty of the strategy of each episode. But we start out with Alti as the first randomly selected millionaire, while Natalie also receives a clue at the same time that the millionaire is a firstborn child. So she is trying to suss out who the firstborn childs are, or children. Childs, what am I doing? And Alti has to complete his agenda of saying no cap 10 times before the activity. Now, he had a bunch of other phrases that were options that he could have chosen. What did you think of his selection of no cap?
I thought that was the best choice just because you can more seamlessly, I think, get away with no cap versus like see you later, alligator. And like that just like is also more words to say
Yeah.
10 times. I think that no cap has just made it more simple. And I mean, he didn't know what it was, but at least Peter then explained to him and then he ended up using it in the correct way, but ended up getting caught. But I think he did a good job mostly like people didn't really pick up on it a ton for the most part. So I thought he went with the right choice there.
Now, as our resident young person on this podcast, Molly, does no cap mean keeping it real?
I mean, I think there's multiple, like, I don't know. Like, I don't use no cap, but I think in that context, it makes sense. Like,
Like, that's not how I feel like it means no lie.
well,
Like,
that's also
which I mean is
keeping it
kind of the same
real.
thing, but like, I
Yeah.
don't know that I would hear the clue. The millionaire successfully completed their agenda by keeping it real. Like, I wouldn't automatically think like, oh yeah, someone said no cap, and that means keeping it. Like, I don't. I guess that's not how I would define it. But like, I'm 31, so maybe
Well,
I'm not
maybe
the
they were
target
trying to
audience.
make it a little bit more broad of a clue
Mm,
so that it wouldn't be so direct. But I don't know. That's a good point. Now I'm like, what is the real meaning of no
yeah,
cap?
yeah. But I agree that I think that was the best choice for him because it is short. Like he was able to say it like no cap, no cap, no cap, and then like
Yeah.
he just got three right there. So like you couldn't do that with CLA or alligator and like just repeat that 5 times in a row. Like everyone's gonna think like, are you having a stroke? What is happening? So I agree that I think that was the best selection for him, but it was so funny just seeing like that come from Alti, who would never in a million years say that phrase naturally.
I know. Now I'm gonna say, what is the meaning of
Yeah.
No, I know, but it was fun to see that of him like trying to use it like in the casual way, and like it kind of did come across casual. Like, so I was
I
impressed
think
by
he
it.
did a good job.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it means like no lie, truthfully, genuinely.
Look at me
Wow, good job,
staying
Michael. You're the
young at
resident young
heart.
person.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was a really fun first activity to watch
Yeah,
and I just feel like No Cap is iconic in the $1 Million Secret universe now,
I
for
know.
sure.
I agree. Even though we had short live of Alti, but it
Yeah,
was
poor Alti. So he was successful at the agenda and he won a kill shot if he were to have survived the elimination. However, unfortunately, he does not because Nick notices the no cap agenda. He thinks it flags it as suspicious. And he also, Hunter, receives a clue from the trophy room where that says the millionaire completed their agenda by keeping it real, which I think both of those combined together just made everybody believe once Nick really spoke up about the no cap, and then others were like, yeah, he did say that. I remember that. And then with the keeping it real, it all combined together to get Alti voted out here, which was, hey, we almost never see on Traitors the traitors get caught to that early on, and there's usually 3 or 4 of them to start. So the fact that they were able to catch the millionaire first episode was pretty impressive, I thought.
I know. I was really impressed. I was like, wow, are they already going to catch him here? But they did. So that was smart, especially from Nick's perspective, to see that correlation there and then convincing everyone else of that as well.
Yeah. And Nick was kind of like the hero at this point.
Yeah.
Like, this was their golden boy. This was the guy to watch out for, that he was the one who caught on to this. But then Caleb gets the money next. So his agenda is to get 3 guests to wear one of his hats. And he initially has trouble pulling this off. He's like, I don't know how to do this naturally. Nobody wants to put on his cowboy hat. But then he comes up with an interesting plan. So he tells Yumiko, Kat, and Hunter that he got a secret agenda, like one of the guests got in season 1, who was not the millionaire. So he's claiming that he's not the millionaire, but he did get a secret agenda from Peter. And he tells them that it's for them to put on the hat. He tells exactly what his actual agenda is. And he says that if he completes the agenda, he gets an extra vote. What did you think of Caleb's strategy here to pretend to not be the millionaire, but to have a other secret agenda? Would you have believed this, and would you have wanted to help him in this agenda?
Well, I thought it was smart of him to realize this in that moment because it would have been too obvious, I think, if had he just like put the hat on 3 other people. But I think in this way, at least he could at least build some allies there and they like in that moment, like think that they're not gonna also like be a suspect of being murdered or like being the kill shot. And even though they didn't think he was the millionaire at that point until a little bit later on, maybe they thought that. But in this moment, like I think it made sense for Caleb to bring this up because then he was able to complete the agenda with it being like a little bit more and not a super direct way, I guess, of it being the millionaire's agenda. But then it ended up like working out in his favor in this case too. But I think in general, like obviously, like we know Peter does share about all the agendas that are out there, and so that lie might not have been the best lie since then they're going to be sharing that it wasn't actually a thing. I mean, not that they didn't say that it was a thing, but they didn't explicitly say this agenda was a thing. So I think that is maybe he could have come up with another reasoning there. But I thought in this moment, like he did a really good job in getting that agenda completed.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that this is something that you can probably get away with in season 2, where before people really know the meta of like, yeah, Peter's going to always reveal
Yeah.
when there is a second agenda at play. But also, at this point, they wouldn't know that whether Peter was going to reveal something or not. Like, it's not until after at the dinner that he would have revealed it at all. So at this point, yes, like I think this is really, really smart, and you just have to be able to know that you can trust those 3 that you choose.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's where it comes, and it could be dangerous, is if you pick even just one of those 3 who has more loyalty to somebody else, who then they're going to rat you out, and then potentially somebody who you really don't trust then has that information and could use it against you. So I think he did a great job. Clearly, all 3 of them were willing to help him, and he was successful, and he did complete that mission. And yeah, I think that then this is what we talked about earlier on, that we really are seeing the evolution of strategy here in this game. And not only are we seeing that with Caleb, but then we also see it with Kat here later on, because after Natalie is voted out at the dinner and Caleb uses his kill shot on Tarek, he Kat starts to realize that Caleb is probably the millionaire, because Peter never mentioned at dinner that someone else had a mission. So she's like, I think I got played here. I think the 3 of us got played, and we helped him complete his agenda. But she's able to have the thought that, okay, yes, he's probably the millionaire, but that doesn't mean that I need to target him because of that. That she's like, I am going to protect him, and that way I can hopefully remain safe from any potential kill shots because he trusts me. I'm an ally for him. And and she knows where the $1 million is, so she can later on in the season, when she's ready to get that money, she can take him out at that point, and then hopefully be able to keep that money till the end. So what did you think of Kat's thought process here?
Yeah, I thought that that was smart. I think now we know obviously it was a little bit early on to think that she could just know where that money was going to be the whole time. But I think in this moment, like it did make sense because she didn't know the money was going to be moving so quickly after that. But at least she was able to build that trust with Caleb there, and like not getting him out, I think was a good move on her side too.
I totally agree. I think that this was the only downside is that I think she forgot about the fact that if you are, especially early on, the millionaire for a couple rounds, then you do get the opportunity to give the money, to have the money randomly placed somewhere else. So I wonder if maybe she knew that that was an option, but was hoping that Caleb would have a choice of whether to have it moved or to get some other advantage, and that he would choose to keep it. I don't know. But then clearly, I mean, we see in just a little bit that Caleb does get that option and he chooses to move the money. So that was the one fatal flaw of her plan. But I think I can't blame her because we're only on season 2 of this show. Like, I can understand how like you wouldn't necessarily remember or know the exact rules that after 2 rounds or so, usually they do get that choice. And eh, there's just not enough meta at this point for the show, and you don't know whether it's going to be different from season 1. So I think it was worth a shot. Like, I think I really appreciated her thought process and strategy there, regardless of the outcome.
I agree.
Well, Caleb's next agenda here is probably my favorite of this whole season, where he has to be Kevin's shadow for 45 minutes, staying within 15 feet of him for that time, uninterrupted, which is crazy. Like, that's a really hard agenda. How would you have gone about trying to make that happen without looking as suspicious as possible?
I don't know. I feel like it was hard. Everyone noticed it, but I mean, especially Kevin, and especially because they're just like having conversations at this point. Like it wasn't like during a challenge or something. Like I think it was harder that it was just like in the house. He had to hang around him, and I feel like I mean I guess it could have he don't know when they're splitting up in challenges too. But like I think with that, it made it so everyone was like annoyed with Kevin after or with Caleb after that he had to be like so much like in Kevin's face. But I don't even know how you would go about that in a more sly way. Like I think it's obvious no matter how you have to do that.
Yeah, I think the only way that I can possibly think about doing that is if you were like, maybe you're like at the pool or something, where
Oh,
like you're in a close space and like you're probably going to be there a while. Like, if you're in the water, if you're in the pool, like you're probably going to be there for 45 minutes or maybe close to that. You get the majority of your time done during then, and I feel like you can more easily stay pretty close to somebody there. Or if you're like during a meal, if you're eating, you just sit
oh,
right next to them, and then I don't know that you're eating for 45 minutes. Maybe they do there. Maybe, there's not a lot to do, and so you're just going to stay longer eating than maybe you would otherwise when you have more options of things to do. So maybe you can get most of the time done there. I don't know, like just times like that where it's more naturally you're going to be close to somebody. But I also totally get where you just think, okay, I might as well, like, let me just get this done now. And
yeah.
hopefully he doesn't move much for 45 minutes and I get lucky.
I know. Yeah, I think that was a little bit of Caleb's downfall, was just doing it like immediately then. Like I think if he had waited just a little bit longer maybe and they were all just like in a group, or as you're saying, like maybe get him to go to the pool and like I don't know, get him in a smaller situation, then it could be longer, but everyone was noticing him following Kevin around.
And especially Kevin noticed it, and
Yeah.
Kevin started to get real annoyed with him. He just like, let me be by myself for a second. Let me go have a conversation with someone, with you not right there. And Caleb was just like, no, I can't let you do that. I can't let you do that. And I can't tell you why. And he was just acting so incredibly weird. But then he does eventually come up with some sort of excuse where he said he pins it on Melissa, and he tells Kevin that Melissa told him to rattle Kevin by just being with him, being his shadow, and not letting him be by himself. So initially, Kevin believes him and starts to think that this is millionaire behavior by Melissa. But then Melissa adamantly denies it, and eventually it seems like Kevin believes her and then goes back to thinking that this was Caleb.
Yeah, no, I know that was a good line from Caleb to share that because I don't think I would have thought about that in that moment, but I think it did get Kevin to kind of forgive him in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it worked for like half a second.
Yeah.
I just think like it's one of those things where I think you don't know what the clue is going to be. It's hard to just like immediately pin that on someone like Melissa when uh, tomorrow the clue could completely exonerate her, and then people are looking at you again like, well, we know it's not Melissa. Why would Melissa do that if she's not the millionaire? And now I'm looking at you suspicious again. So I think he might as well try something, like it's better than nothing, I guess. But I almost think like it's not worth it at some a certain point. Once someone Kevin really starts to like look at you being like, okay, what is going on here? I think you have to stop before it gets to that point, and it's just like take the punishment of not completing this agenda.
That's what I thought too. I was like, is he gonna even finish this at this point? Like he's getting in so much heat for this.
Yeah, because the penalty for not completing this agenda was 3 votes against you. So I feel like I feel at this point, he knows he has allies who
Mhm.
just help him complete this a supposed secret other agenda from the previous week. Like, I feel like unless you really think that you are going to be getting a lot of votes, 3 votes against you doesn't mean anything unless you get enough other votes that it
Yeah.
becomes a majority. So I feel like if it was some other worse penalty, like we see later on, there's a penalty that the trophy room clue is much simpler. If it was that, I would be a lot more inclined to feel the need to complete the agenda because
Yeah.
otherwise they're probably gonna catch you either way, whether you do or don't. So you might as well try to do it. But if it's just 3 votes, like I feel like once Kevin at all seems to think that something's weird, just stop.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, then we get Kat going into the trophy room, and she gets the clue, which she is able to pin on Lauren T. It's something to do with remember the first letter, and really, in actuality, it's an A, which Caleb has in his name, as well as about half of the other guests. But what she does, which I think is also, again, really, really smart from Kat. At this point, like Kat was impressing me to no end, and she was able to think of, okay, let me tell everybody the first letter of the clue itself was T and Lauren T. So she's able to make people believe that this clue is about Lauren T. I think the only problem with this is that I don't think they would be that obvious. It's like usually these clues are supposed to kind of point to about half of the guests
Mhm.
and exonerate the other half. So you're still left with like a handful of people who this could apply to. Whereas if this was about Lauren T, like that's really pretty much only pinning it on Lauren T.
I know. Yeah, I thought that was smart from Kat, but also like I mean the A kind of helped or it would have maybe pointed to her, which is why she wanted to like make sure even more so to keep Caleb safe there, but also to target Lauren T that she had to kind of alter that clue in that way. But she did say what the real clue was. Like she didn't just like lie and say this was not the clue that she was given. So I think with that, like people could interpret it in different ways, but people really did want to believe Kat and go after Lauren T there.
Yeah, I think this is the perfect way to lie about a clue because you don't have to lie about what the actual clue was. So you don't have to like as much try to keep your story straight. Like, what you're lying about is how you're interpreting it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good way to go about it, because that's just your opinion. Like, if you end up being wrong, then it's not like, oh my God, this clue that you made up was so like pinning it on this person, and then it doesn't end up being this person. And then I think everybody kind of looks back at you being like, well, clearly this wasn't the actual clue, because otherwise it would have been that person. And so with this, you can kind of be like, oh my God, you guys, I just thought about another way that this could be interpreted. And like, then it doesn't as much come back to you as being looking suspicious.
Yeah, definitely. Look, Kat was smart there.
Yeah. Well, with the help of Hunter and Kat, Caleb survives this round and Lauren T is eliminated. It was crazy to me that Caleb survived this round.
I
Like,
know.
with how obvious it was from that agenda, I never in a million years, while I was watching Caleb be Kevin's shadow, never in my mind did I think that he was not getting eliminated this round.
I know. That was crazy. I was impressed by that. I guess it was more just like Kat really wanted to keep him there so that she knew where the $1 million were. But then obviously that changed because his agenda was gonna move the money.
Yep. Well, then Peter reveals that the money will be randomly moved, which, of course, Kat is devastated by this because she just sent home an innocent Lauren T. And it really feels like Kat at this point, her personality changes, and it never fully recovers, I feel like, where this really rattled her. And to me, it felt like somebody who like watched the show, was a fan of the show, so excited to do this, and then she really gets there and she's so excited and she's playing all these games and manipulating and is such a smart player. But then as soon as it causes an innocent person to go home and you don't even get the benefit of it, I think that really kind of had an emotional effect on her, where for the rest of the time she was there, she wasn't quite as willing to play as hard as she was for the first couple episodes.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely did take a toll on her, I think. And just the way that she was going about her relationships with people, if she wasn't being the first one to speak up as much or like just like really trying to listen more, it seemed like.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's such an interesting case study for people who go on these shows, and it's like these are real people that you're affecting. And I think it seemed like she was close to Lauren T, so I think that just kind of knowing that she was a huge part of why Lauren went home there was it didn't it really took a toll on her. And I think that's such an interesting thing that we don't necessarily like see as clearly often on these shows.
Yeah, for sure. Especially because I think they're all like new into this reality world.
Yeah.
So they're much more emotional with it being like, oh, I got this wrong. Like, how could I do that to someone I liked? Like, all that, which obviously it is a game at the end of the day, but they do have emotions. So it does hurt when they send home a friend.
Right, because like on something like Traitors, which you get these people who are reality TV experts, and so they're a little hardened. Like, I feel like no matter what show they come from, probably more so the gamers on that show, but even the housewives, like they're used to this world at the very least, and so I think they're a little bit less likely to have such an emotional reaction as people who are just fans, civilians taken off the street. And it makes me wonder if when we get the civilian version of Traitors later this year, whether we'll see a little bit more of that.
Yeah. No, I'm curious to see that.
Well, then Casey and Melissa are the main two suspects here. Oh, before we get there, Nick is the new millionaire. That's where we end the first batch of episodes, and then we come back the following week. And Casey and Melissa are the main two suspects until Kevin gets a clue saying that the millionaire was born in 1999. So Melissa and Casey kind of had Casey was talking about rom-coms, I think it was, and people thought that was a little bit suspicious. And then Caleb tried to make something that Melissa was sharing her food with people, and that was suspicious to him. So those were the kind of the two that people were looking at. But then once Kevin got that clue, it completely exonerated Melissa at the very least, but also Casey, because Nick, Kevin, Yumiko, and Kat were the only ones born in 1999. And the clue wasn't quite as specific as 1999. It gave a few movies that it seemed like American Pie was the big one that people knew was 1999.
Yeah.
So it really put a spotlight on those four in particular. But Nick was able to successfully complete his agenda of telling four guests who their celebrity lookalikes are. So this gave him a double barrel kill shot, basically meaning that all the votes were completely useless, and he was going to be able to eliminate two guests of his choice instead. This was so crazy powerful to me, where I was like, I think we've got a little bit too far in giving the millionaire just a bit too much power here.
Yeah, no, this was really powerful because that meant like it didn't matter what the majority thought. If they were wrong, like then it wouldn't matter at all. Like it would just be the millionaire's choice of who goes home.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like I like when somebody goes home by the choice of everybody, and then the millionaire also gets a kill shot. That to me is a more fair, slightly more even power. But this was just crazy that he got to by himself send home two people, and the rest of the guests had no say in the matter at all. So I guess if they had successfully sent home the millionaire, then he wouldn't have had that power. So, I mean, to me, at least there is a reason to send home the millionaire on this show, where versus on Traitors, if you know who it is, you might as well just leave them in there till almost the end. So, I do appreciate in that sense that the show does reward getting rid of the millionaire, because that is the point of the show in theory.
Yeah, I know, and especially with having this kind of power, you don't want them to be there forever if they can just kill you off without even having that majority vote.
Right. Like, I think if it was one person, like if they said, okay, we're canceling the votes and then the millionaire gets to instead just vote off one person, that would be a little bit more fair to me. But it's just, I know I'm too. Yeah, that was a little too much in my opinion. But Kat received the most votes here, but it didn't matter because Nick chose to eliminate Casey and Melissa. What did you think of his choices of Casey and Melissa here?
I thought it made sense because they were kind of like the ones talked about, but I think it would have made more sense for him to go after people who maybe weren't as talked about as suspects because then it could have gotten some more heat off of his back to get those people in or keep those people in the game. So then, like, it kind of allows a shield for him. But he had such close allies with other people that, like, I think it made sense in this moment. So he didn't have to like backstab one of his closest friends there.
Yeah, I think with Melissa, it made perfect sense because Melissa was obviously not the millionaire based on that clue.
Yeah.
With Casey, I know she didn't admit that she was born in 1999, but I could also see a world where maybe I could be convinced that Casey lied about her age and that she was actually born in 99. And then, everyone was already suspicious of her. Plus, maybe the clue actually did apply to her. And so then you could kind of pin things on her because she was already being talked about before the clue. So I could maybe see a world with that, but also like neither of the two of them were aligned with Nick in any way. So like I feel like at the end of the day, his choices could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, I agree. But I was actually, even though we said it was bad that he got this much power, but I was glad it happened in this case because then Kat was safe.
Me too.
So of course I can be hypocritical with that, but I think with her, like, obviously not being a millionaire, and we knew that, like, I was nervous for her that Nick was going so hard against Kat. So I was glad to see that it ended up being Casey and Melissa in the end there.
Yes, as our friend Ronnie Karam would say, we are proud members of the Hippocratic Party.
Yes.
So, Nick's next agenda though is to clip 3 clothespins on 3 different people, and Yumiko is also randomly selected here to receive an agenda. So finally, we do get a guest who actually gets another agenda, And at the beach today, she has to hit 3 guests in the head with a beach ball. So if she is successful, she will steal the money and become the next millionaire if the current millionaire also survives the vote. So I thought this was very interesting because it gives her a reason to want to keep the millionaire in the game, which is kind of twofold. First, she has to figure out who the millionaire is, and then she has to make sure that they survive that vote. So I thought this was actually a very interesting agenda that Yumiko got here.
I agree. I thought that it was good, and especially because I mean we know it's Nick and they're close in the show as well, so I think it made sense for them both to like be the ones kind of in that power seat in a way of like figuring out how to navigate that, which was interesting.
What do you think of Yumiko and Nick's little showmance?
I liked it. I think it also helped in the game of the aspect of like that alliance, the alliance that they could trust each other there. I don't think it lasted outside of the show, but it was nice to see a little bit of flirtation between them.
Hmm. We know, sadly, it doesn't last because Nick is on the next season of Perfect Match,
Oh,
which is coming out in a few days. So,
yeah. Well, we're about to
yeah,
see more of Nick. That's exciting. I like seeing Nick.
handsome Nick,
Yeah.
perfect for that show.
Yes.
So Yumiko's easily succeeds at her agenda. The beach balls were really big, so I was a little afraid, like, oh, that might be a little harder than it sounded. But she figures out a way to do it very naturally and does not even come close to getting caught there. But Nick is also successful at his agenda. However, he didn't have such an easy time because he got caught by Caleb and Lauren G. And I thought, I'm sorry, Nick. I think Nick did a horrible job with this agenda. I think
No,
there were
so
so
bad.
many better ways that he could have done this. Like the first clothespin, I thought he did well. Then the last two, he got a little brave, and he was doing it when he was the only person with them. Like, why would you do that when you were like putting the other two clothespins on the other two people who you were with? So when both of them find them, he's the only other person in the vicinity.
I know. I was like, okay, he's just doing this a little sloppily right now.
So basically, at this point, the word gets around about Clothespin Gate, and everyone's pretty confident that Nick is the millionaire here. But so Nick's reward is that he gets to cancel the trophy room and he gets to also negate 2 votes against him at the elimination. So it's a pretty good reward. Like if you're gonna do one and risk, getting caught, it's a good reward to do that because he was gonna get caught because the penalty if he didn't was that the trophy room clue would be like really obvious about him. So he's probably thinking like I'm gonna get caught either way, so might as well get caught and get 2 votes negated against me.
Yeah.
So, it makes sense, but I still think that he could have figured out a way to do that and less likely, at least, get caught.
Yeah, definitely.
So Yumiko comes up with a plan here to change the vote to Hunter. So she tells Daisy that Hunter is a more dangerous player and that they can save Nick for the next vote now that they're confident that he's the millionaire. So Daisy's all for this. She's like, this is genius. And they try to get others on board, but Caleb and Kat warn Hunter before the dinner that his name is coming up here. So, what did you think about the way that Yumiko went about here trying to save Nick? Because, of course, she was pretty confident that Nick was the millionaire, and this was her way to save the millionaire and be able to become the next millionaire. What did you think about her doing that by changing the vote to Hunter?
I thought that it was smart because there also was some suspicion of like, I mean, obviously not really suspicion on Hunter, but just knowing that he's really smart of a player could allow them to then get further in the game. If like Hunter is out of it, then they have more of a shot. So I thought it was smart, and Yumiko was really good at convincing who she needed to in that moment to share that. So I was impressed by that.
Hmm. Yeah, this was kind of the arrival of Yumiko in this game to me. This was where we kind of start the Yumiko story, and I love her so much. I
Me
need
too.
her to come back on some show here. I think she is made for this reality competition space, and I would love to see her on Survivor, Big Brother, any of those. I think she would be fantastic. And yeah, I thought she did a really, really great job here of changing it to Hunter, and it felt natural. It felt like there was no ulterior motive. And she was able to very easily convince Daisy to help her out with this. And of course, it just kind of came down to Caleb and Kat warning Hunter, and were they going to be able to do anything to change it back to Nick? So the vote ends up being 4-4 tie. But because of Nick's two canceled votes, Hunter was eliminated here. So then Peter reveals Yumiko's reward. Not that it was Yumiko, but he reveals that the money has been moved to somebody else here. So at that point, yet again, this plan to not get out the millionaire and keep them in because you know who they are gets foiled once again right away.
Yep. I know. It's funny that that happened again this way. Of course, I feel like it had to. Like once they know, like it's gonna move.
Hmm. Yeah, and that I wonder if like that will in the future make people afraid to use that strategy.
Yeah.
Which that's the only fear that I have with this happening like regularly after there's two rounds of the same millionaire. I hope that that doesn't make it so people in the future won't even consider doing a plan like that because I think it is
Mhm.
really fun when it happens. So I almost wish that it was something that didn't happen more than like once per season.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that can happen next time.
Yeah, and like I get it's fun to have different millionaires because whoever the millionaires is kind of like the main character of the show. And so I think it is fun to have that change hands throughout the season because then you get to know all of them a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I think that it might uh, let the gameplay not be as exciting as it could be as it was this season.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, then Yumiko gets her agenda as the new millionaire to say 5 foreign phrases, and she is successful by saying them all to Caleb, who it just goes right over his head. And she wins a kill shot if she survives the elimination. So Daisy, however, is suspicious of Yumiko, but not for the right reasons. She's suspicious that her agenda was to save the millionaire, which I guess now that I say that, it was kind of part of her agenda. Like that was
Yeah.
uh, the back not that wasn't the agenda itself, but it was part of what she needed to do in order for it to be successful, if that makes sense. So she wasn't
Yeah.
totally wrong, Daisy.
No, Daisy was good at noticing that because I mean, then Miko did get the money in her pocket there, but or her briefcase. So it was interesting to see that as the suspicion, even though it wasn't like exactly correct there, it was in line of what needed to happen.
Yeah. And Lauren gets the next clue saying that the millionaire was an intelligence analyst. So for Daisy, this further convinces her that it's Yumiko. And Nick also agrees with that. But some others think that it might be someone older, because if they were a former intelligence analyst, you would think that means they had to go to a lot of school to get there. And then if it's a former, it might be someone who's retired or a little bit older. So if you were to see that clue, like, would you think that it was Yumiko, or would that convince you maybe it wasn't?
Yeah, I think like initial hearing about that, I probably wouldn't think it was Yumiko just because she is young. But then the more they were talking about it, obviously they were like, oh, she lives in Virginia and that's where government is. And so I think it just made sense that it was Yumiko for that
Mhm.
clue.
So Yumiko is eliminated here. It was a very emotional exit. I thought it was really heartwarming, everything she said there. And the money is then randomly moved back to Caleb. So he is the first person to get that money twice in the season. And his agenda is to high five two guests and miss. So he successfully completes it at the activity and wins a kill shot if he survives the elimination. And it doesn't seem like anyone picks up on this.
Well, his first high five to Daisy was, or was it Melissa? I think
She
it was,
does
oh,
mention
not
it,
Melissa,
yes.
Lauren.
It
Lauren.
was it was, I think,
I think it was
Melissa.
Lauren G.
Oh, maybe it was Lauren G. Yeah, 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 you're
Yeah,
right, you're right.
I'm like, now all their names are mixing up in my head. But Lauren G, she was like, "Oh, you missed!" Like she like thought it was like a diss at her, like that.
Right, but she doesn't think it's suspicious
Yeah,
seemingly. Like,
I
she
know,
just
but it
thinks
was
it was
funny
mean.
that she just, yeah, she just thought it was rude. But it's funny that she noticed that after
Yeah.
the, but then Daisy didn't notice when he five or fake high fived her because then he did come back to actually finish the high five. So I thought that was smart. Like he missed the first one and then he got it on the second like
Mhm.
try for Daisy. So it was just kind of like, oh, I just like wasn't looking kind of thing. So he was able to get away with that, which was smart.
Yeah, and as somebody who just completely missed a handshake from Chappelle the other day, I can completely understand how this would happen and not look suspicious.
Yeah. You just need to be in that position to have that agenda.
Yeah, exactly. I would do great. But so he does successfully complete this. And in the trophy room, Kat gets a clue saying that the millionaire owned a clothing store and loves fashion. So she's convinced it's Daisy based on this clue. And also the fact that during the activity, they call it, sorry, Daisy was listing colors to her of what she was going to wear at dinner that night. And she thought that was very suspicious because she listed off the same list of colors twice. So that did look suspicious to
Yeah.
me as well. Like, I would 100% be convinced that that was an agenda.
I know. Daisy was just really into coordinating the colors. Like she
I
just
guess so.
really liked those colors there, but definitely was smart on Kat to pick up on it, even though it wasn't right. But like it would have been something I would have been suspicious about as well.
Definitely. Well, then she and Kevin come up with a plan to make up a clue to tell the others that more directly points to Daisy without implicating Kat as well, like this clue does. So they come up with this whole clue that they decide to tell everybody in unison together, which I thought was like kind of unnecessary. But
I
I guess it
know.
was because they didn't want them to know who actually got the clue, so they were like, we're just going to say it together, but it was like kind of creepy.
It was. They were practicing and I was like, "Oh, are they gonna get this right?" And they did. But it was also like a weird clue to make up.
Like, it was a weird clue because I think that I would probably not, like, this is too weird for somebody to make up, but
Yeah.
also it kind of didn't sound like the clues that they've been getting the whole season.
Yeah. No, I know. I agree. I'm like, how did they even come up with this?
I don't know, but they came up with it so fast.
I know. I'm
Like,
like,
Kevin just
who is this
immediately,
gonna
like, had it on hand. Like, basically, they fine-tuned it a little bit, but, like, he very quickly came up with that. I was like, whoa, that's crazy.
I
But
know. I mean, maybe they edited out the parts where they were actually
probably.
brainstorming, but I was also like, wow, that was fast.
Yeah. So Kat privately tells Daisy that Kevin was the one who made up this clue, but that they actually didn't receive a clue at all. And instead, she just got immunity. So this was in an effort to make Daisy think that she would, if Daisy, she's convinced Daisy's the millionaire. So she doesn't want Daisy getting her out in a kill shot. So basically, she's like, well, you can't use your kill shot on me because I have
Mhm.
immunity.
Yeah,
Which I thought was, this was like, okay, Kat, we're back.
I know. I was impressed, but then I was like, this is kind of a lot of lies to bring up in this moment that I feel like one of these is going to get back to bite her. But I don't know. In this moment, I was like, okay, we'll see what's going to happen. Daisy does seem to believe her here.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. This was too much by Kat because there was no way that she was going to be able to keep up all these lies and that Daisy wasn't but I guess she thought in her mind, she's thinking Daisy's the millionaire. So we're going to take her out. Then
Mhm.
she's going to leave and say, good game. Like, she's not going to be bitter at Kat because she was in fact the millionaire. So they were correct. So she wasn't going to rat her out or anything on the way out. And that then she's going to be gone. So nobody else is going to have this story. Nobody's going to know that Kevin's not going to know that I revealed that the clue was fake. Nobody else is going to know because she's not going to get a chance to say anything. And I guess in her mind, this was going to completely stay with Daisy and not go anywhere else. But of course, this did not happen because Daisy is blindsided and eliminated, but she was not the millionaire, of course. So she is very upset and she does tell everyone what Kat told her about the clue being fake.
Yeah.
Then Kevin's the next one taken out by the kill shot. So Kat is basically left without a single ally in this group.
I know. That was crazy that happened all like that. But I think honestly it kind of worked out that Kevin was killed there too, because then I think he would have been suspicious on Kat. I mean, I guess everyone was kind of suspicious on Kat at this point that she lied to Daisy about that. But I think it was interesting because I mean, Kat just kept that to herself the whole time. Also, that what that clue was until like the very end in this show, but I thought that it might have been like she did a little too much here.
Yeah, I think that Kat, look, I appreciate the hard game that she was playing, but I do think that she went a little bit too a step too far in how many lies and stories that she was telling people that it was bound to come back and bite her. But
Yeah.
yeah, this was just an unfortunate series of events, I think, for her that she comes back now and everybody is very suspicious of her being the millionaire since they all know at this point that the clue is fake. So the next activity is played in randomly divided teams of two. The winning team gets to decide someone from the losing team to send home. So Nick and Lauren win this, which leaves Caleb and Kat vulnerable. Now, their choice is basically between do they get rid of Kat, who they believe to be the millionaire, or do they get rid of Caleb so that they go into final three? They believe knowing who the millionaire is, which they believe it to be Kat. So, what
Yeah.
which direction would you have gone in?
Well, I thought it was interesting because they were still like so gung ho on Kat that they were gonna just vote her out there, like, and just get the money elsewhere. But I think then it would be a little bit risky to not know where the money would end up. Like, I guess it could be to one of you three, but like in that sense, like I think I'd rather keep the millionaire, so that I do know where that money is in that briefcase. So I was kind of sad to see them wanting to go after Kat here, but also then knowing like, okay, well now they're gonna know that it's Caleb probably. I mean, not know 100%, but like have more of a hunch that it's Caleb, and then they could then switch it with him.
Yeah, I think that what's so funny is that I do agree with you that I think I would probably want to keep in the millionaire,
Yeah,
but then of course they would be wrong
yeah,
in this case, which I think would have been better for them because then they would have known that with Caleb leaving, they would know for sure that Caleb was the millionaire and now it's going to be randomly divided.
yeah,
But leaving, getting rid of Kat, they know they were wrong, which I guess makes them probably really suspect that it was Caleb. But yeah, I guess they made the right choice in the end. Now that I think
yeah,
about it, because then for Nick at least, he probably is pretty confident that Caleb is the millionaire. I feel like if I was Lauren, maybe I would not be 100% sure either way, but I feel like it's probably pretty clear that Lauren's not the millionaire, right?
yeah. I mean, it was clear to me, but we're the ones watching, so
Yeah, yeah. But like I feel like if I were Nick, I would be more confident about it than if I was Lauren.
yeah, I agree.
So they
And
do
she
get rid
never
of
was the whole time. So I feel like that also was a given. That's like, okay,
true.
like she hadn't changed her gameplay at all. No one ever suspected her either. So I think that it also kind of added to that was like, okay, like it's not going to be Lauren here.
Yeah. So they decide to send home Kat, sending Caleb to the final three. So then the final three competes in one last activity, which Nick wins. Caleb comes in second and Lauren comes in third. So this means that Nick and Caleb have the chance to swap boxes at the end, and Lauren will not get that opportunity. So basically, Nick and Caleb go into the room one by one, and they get an opportunity to swap one box, make one swap of the boxes of who currently has each case. And then the next person will go in and they will also have the opportunity if they would like to swap as well. Or they can leave the cases or what boxes, sorry. I keep thinking this is like Dondi. But the boxes, they can either leave them where they are or they can make one swap. So Lauren does not get a chance to go in that room, so she is stuck with whatever Nick and Caleb decide to do. This is where I think this is a very interesting conversation. Is so if you are the one to go in first. So in this case, Caleb goes first, and he has the money in his box. What do you do in that situation if you're Caleb?
I know this was the tricky one because he also like he could have easily won it, but he decided to not because he didn't want to seem so suspicious that he was a millionaire. So I thought that that was a good play on his part. But then I think that because he knows Nick is so smart, like I think he should have swapped it in this moment to like change Nick's perception of like what happened there. Because obviously then he goes back and says that he might have swapped them, but then he didn't end up doing that. But I think it's just like you just have to see who comes out with their lies better. Basically, at this point, it's like who, what should you do here? And I think in this situation, like because Caleb had been playing close game, like he shouldn't be playing it so close to the end here to not swap it, so that Nick would then swap it back.
I agree. I think if I'm Caleb, I swap it because I feel like not swapping is the more obvious thing to do if you have the money. Like psychologically, I feel like you just want to keep it in your possession. And so I think if I'm Nick, I'm probably thinking that that is the more likely thing that Caleb did.
And
And
Nick
then,
knows he doesn't have the money.
right.
Yeah.
So, like, I think that probably most of the time the right thing to do is swap, but I also think it really just comes down to how you act after you come back and have to have a conversation with Nick and before Nick goes in. It is just like you have to figure out how you are going to act when you have that conversation because that's really what it comes down to is does Nick believe you kept it or swapped it? And so you have to figure out a way to make Nick think that you did the opposite of whatever you did. And then in that case, it doesn't matter what you did as long as he believes you did the opposite of it. So
Yeah.
then if you're Nick in this situation,
It's all a
what do
mental
you
game.
do? Yeah.
Oh, if I was Nick, I think then, I mean, he was calling it back to like when they played poker and knowing that like Caleb really wasn't risky in that way. So I think then like thinking that Caleb didn't swap it, then I would totally swap it there.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think Nick read it correctly,
Yeah.
but I think in that case, probably most of the time, I don't know. I don't know. I think it just depends who's the person who coming
I
before me.
know.
Like, I feel like there's no right or wrong answer to this, and that's what makes it
Mhm.
so interesting to me.
Yeah.
And that's why I love this end game is that I think there's so many like factors that go into it and you just really have a good poker face and you have to do a good job of convincing the other person what you did, or if you're going second, being able to read the person who came before you. So I think it's such an interesting end game. I love it. It's so unique. And of course we know that Caleb leaves the money in his box while Nick switches, and so Nick ends up with the money, making him the final millionaire and the winner of the season. What do you think of Nick as our season 2 winner?
I was happy for Nick. I also appreciated that he was able to pick up on the clues of when they were playing poker and using that to know that Caleb probably did not switch it because their final conversation would have left me so confused when I was watching that. I was like, wait, so what is Caleb trying to convince Nick of here? And like Nick had to really just stay true to himself and his gut. And I was happy that he did that because then he ended up with the million. I think anyone at the end here would have been deserving of the million. So I was happy with any of them. They all seemed to be really just wanting the money to support their families and whatnot. So I feel like with that, like it was hard to go wrong with who won it. But I was happy to see that from when we saw the first episode, Nick catching the millionaire, and then now he's the millionaire. Like I think it just became full circle, which was fun to see.
Yes, it was. I think Nick is a very deserving winner. I think that the story of Nick this season from very early on being the one to catch on to Alti to now being the winner, I think is a great story. And I think he's super likable. And of course, we're going to be seeing him on Perfect Match in just a few days. So I think this perfectly leads into that show. And I think that Handsome Nick could absolutely become somebody who appears on a bunch of different shows within the Netflix universe and beyond. And he's a fun character. I think the season had quite a few fun characters and good game players and people who I would love to see on future shows. And I think that Nick is a great encapsulation of the season as a whole as the winner. And I really enjoyed the season. I thought it was a very fun ride.
Yes, I agree. I liked everyone in the season, so it was fun to see them all play and how they all interacted with each other. Obviously, like they're all strangers and coming into it, like seeing how those relationships form and evolve as the time goes on was fun to see that as well.
And they've been fun on TikTok over the last couple days. I've been seeing some TikToks from them, and it seems like a lot of them are still close and still hanging out and on good terms. So it's always nice to see that even people who betrayed each other on these shows can still, once the game is over, put that all aside and remain close. And that's always fun to see that there's not a lot of bitterness afterwards.
Yeah, I'm happy about that because it did seem like maybe some of them could be better, but I'm glad that they're not.
Yeah. All right. Well, that about does it for $1 Million Secret Season 2. Excited for hopefully a third season to come next year, which we will absolutely be covering if it does. And be sure, regardless, to stick with us for the rest of our Survivor coverage coming in the next couple weeks and Love Island coming soon. Lots of fun shows coming up that we will be covering. So stay tuned for all that. And be sure to follow us on all social media at Let's Chat Reality. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy it. And we will chat with y'all soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.